Jumping in with this very belated albums of the year 2023 list, the first thing that I think of when I reflect on last year is the music was so dense, so rich, so impressive. It was really difficult to rank. I think it was more difficult to rank 2023 than it's been to rank other years recently. And that's saying a lot because even the last 4 or 5 years, I feel like the music that's been coming out has been incredible. But it's been a lot of cleverness, a lot of deep intention, and a lot of just, I don't know, unusually strategic and thoughtful albums this year. I didn't expect there to be so many that were so good. Even the honorable mentions are just it feels like they should be higher on my list. So it's exciting, and let's get started. All right, coming in at number 21 instead of 20 is Periphery's album, Gent is Not a Genre. And this album is interesting because I'm not a typical Periphery. I don't listen to Periphery all that often, but I thought that the way the songs were structured, the way there was sort of no structural focus, and the way that so many of the songs covered everything from jazz and sort of epic cinematic, almost movie score type approaches, all the way into the traditional deathcore, traditional gent sounds. I felt like the message they were really literally trying to say was, stop typecasting us. Yes, we do some things very well, but honestly, this bending of the string and this groove idea can be applied in many different ways. So there was every possible compositional application across all the songs, and I thought that was a brilliant concept and a bold statement. The Ocean, back again with Holocene. I honestly don't know how the Ocean Collective has time to make any of the music they make, because they are on the road so much. They seem like they work so hard, and they're always traveling, even through injury and everything. So I was kind of surprised that it came out. And it was very, very clean. Pelagic Records bands are always so on brand and so true to that post-metal sound. I think Boreal as a single was a very masterful single. I think there was industrial sensuality throughout the album. That sort of the pivot or maybe not a pivot, but that inclusion of the industrial with the post-metal sound takes it to a more modern place and keeps things fresh. So overall, clean, on brand, expertly done, and amid all the touring they do, just congrats on another really solid release. 7H Target is a new find for me in 2023. Hadn't heard of them ever, but discovered their album Yantra Creating in early last year. I thought that it was a really full, nice death metal sound. I thought that there were some fun, progressive tempo changes that kept it, again, kind of interesting and fresh. It felt like, for me, the first big death metal moment of 2023. Really nice production. I felt like it was gritty without being a mess, because I don't like the super muddy production where it just sounds like vomit and you can't tell what's going on. I thought that even on tracks like Askiza, there was even like a nod to like a Fallujah type sound, which is a quality, their dreamy atmospheric quality is among my favorite in the entire metal world. I thought that Brahmastra was an excellent track, Fire and Places for His Work was an awesome track, and I thought that it was just a very exciting ride, start to finish. Another new find for me in 2023 was the Finnish band And Oceans. Never heard of them before, but checked out their full length this year, As in Gardens, So in Tombs. I thought it was another example of richness. Again, one of the big themes for 2023 is the music has been so rich and so dense. I thought that this album felt very regal, very, very, very fully composed. I found it was like this black metal energy with some epic, galloping, sort of sweeping tones as well. I thought that there was some nice inserts with the synths and the keys. Some of them I weren't really expecting. Some of them had this very glittery, wind-chimey quality that was just really very pretty and very lovely. It was sort of a voyage-like mystical journey throughout the listen. Parts of it sounded like Orknagar a little bit, but really they kind of have their own thing going on that I find very fun. Within Fire and Crystal was an intense, urgent piece with kind of a starry, celestial quality. I thought it was very cool. I thought that Wine into Water had like a fun, groovy, march-like quality, had a bit more sensuality to it that I enjoyed. And of course the Earth Canvas was just a stunning track. So another exciting album. I'm glad to have found this band. I look forward to sort of seeing whatever they do in the future. I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, but Owdwyr, their album Receptor was yet another one that I hadn't listened to the band much before, but loved it. Very groovy, kind of a chaotic blackened death sound. Some neoclassical touches and a little bit of slam. It just has all kinds of good, yummy bits. And the songs Ain and Reverie were just like beyond for me. I felt like this album was incredibly well executed and very confident. So, I don't know, I felt like a bit of a lazy listener by saying this or reflecting on this, but I thought to myself, these kind of shorter, punchy tracks, these tracks that are short but hit really hard, sometimes are really, really fun. Sometimes I like a longer song and more sort of cerebral, long, 8-minute experience, but a lot of these shorter tracks that really hit were just as fun, and it felt like this band put effort into every single little detail. I was super excited and almost lost my marbles when Meanders by Anachronism came out. This band from Switzerland really, really, really brought some deep, deep intention again, and very thoughtful, clever, very technical choices to their album. Parts of their album kind of made me think of super techy stuff like Brain Drill, but they bring in some avant-garde and even Corey energy for some of the songs. I found that the record was at times a little bit chaotic, but it still managed to be elegant and still managed to be lyrical. That seems like it'd be very hard to reconcile, but they managed to. Some of the guitar tuning reminds me of some of the whiny stuff that Imperial Triumphant does. not quite as distorted and not quite as black metal-y as Imperial, but some of the tuning and tones and like again those sharp edges reminded me a tiny bit of Imperial stuff. And then even another sort of Imperial nod, there's the final track dialogues when the woman, there's a screaming element at the very end, and that reminded me very much of one of the singers or vocalists who screams for Imperial Triumph in some of their more raw tracks and raw sections of tracks. So I thought that Macrocosm was a brilliant song. I thought that the title track Meanders was a brilliant song. I even love the album art, the river estuary imagery. So very cool, very excited about them, and brilliant effort in 2023. Starting to get into the big dogs now. Okay, so next up is Sky Void of Stars, Catatonia. We always expect amazing things from them. They always deliver. This album was not a huge departure from what they often do thematically, but in the more mid-tempo post-metal, post-rock isn't always my favorite when it's not super heavy. Like, I love a lot of the Pelagic bands because it's mid-tempo, but it's still punishing. Catatonia is not punishing with Wall of Sound, but they're punishing in their poetry and in their lyrics and in the beautiful, heartbreaking melodies. So, literally there's no bad song. I thought that the way it opens, like the first track just kind of jumps on your lap. There's not a lot of time to kind of get into it. You just kind of are kind of shocked by it, which is very cool and very impactful. I thought Drab Moon was amazing, Author was amazing, Beneath the White Rainbow was amazing, like Austerity, that opening track, the transitions on Colossal Shade are next level, like there's just, I have, with Drab Moon specifically, I have a note that like there's the twists in the middle with the soundscape and the chord changes are just next level. I thought No Beacon to Illuminate Our Fall had great prog touches. And even the bonus track, Absconder, was like, with the fiddles and the melodic touches, gorgeous. No way I couldn't mention this one. So congrats to Catatonia. Speaking of punishing, Ahab, Choral Tombs, wonderful, heavy Weight of the World record from last year. Reminds me a little bit of one of my favorite bands that's on this list, Altarage. A little more melodic though. The Choral Tombs is amazing. The Sea as a Desert is incredible. Mobilis and Mobili, A Choral Tombs, just some of the tracks that I really enjoyed. It's got, of course, like a nautical, black and doom, kind of deathy energy, but it's just so professional. There are some bands that you can tell the potential, you can tell the promise, but maybe it's a little bit raw still. Ahab are consummate professionals, and that really shines through. It's very intellectually stimulating. The first track especially really made me think a lot about what was happening, both musically and thematically. It's very emotional, just low and heavy, and you think about certainly the nods to things like Moby Dick and the Great White Whale and just all of the heaviness of the ocean itself. And I just think it's, as always, while they're so punishing and heavy, they really balance the melodic, acoustic, blackened doom elements like complete experts. So really appreciated the Choral Tombs. Skrying Mirror's Omnimalevolence. Wow, I can't think of another record that was so visually and instantly intriguing in that kind of borderline witchy, occult kind of way. I mean, and Oceans had that mystical quality, but this album really spoke to me on a deep, visceral level from that angle of it's mysterious, I haven't heard of them. The album art, that deep red imagery, and I was hooked right away. It's industrial, but it's also avant-garde. It has a bit of a hollow, kind of basement-y sounding quality, but all of the vitriol, it sounds like sort of audible vitriol and audible, not evil in like a one-dimensional sense, but just it's fiery, it's so incredibly dark, but so incredibly layered. I thought there was like no bad song. Not is one of my favorites on the track. So is Yearn. So is Fractals. So is Lux. Famine as well. This album, it's got sort of it's not reinventing industrial metal. It's not reinventing avant-garde in any kind of super loud way, but it's still billowing and it still has really powerful choruses, bridges, construction. And I just thought that it felt very modern, even though they aren't doing anything super, super new. I don't know how it's just very artistic and very interesting to me. And I found it to be very special. I wrote down a couple times in my notes that this was just a very special album. And I think it's just a treat. And the wall of sound is great. It's just very, very big and sweeping and evil and mysterious, and I loved it. I'm a big fan of Altarage. I have been for several years now. They're a band that I think of often when I listen to new bands or other bands. I often compare them to Altarage when I like them. So worst case scenario, not surprisingly, on the list for 2023, very, very consistent with what they typically do. It gives that sinking, like frightening feeling. Their music is very, very, very frightening and very much a warning. I thought that The Case Full of Putrid Stars, Exhaust, just filthy. I have in my notes that just some of it just sounds filthy, and that to me is another sign of great music. So unapologetic. I thought it was just a great length album-wise. Like, it wasn't too long, because one of the dangers of some of that really hyper-aggressive, hyper-warning style, super wall of sound, super like evil, frightening music is if it's a 2-hour album, you're a little bit blown out by the time it's done. But it's the perfect length. You know, ending with Exhaust, Chef's Kiss, and yeah, they just bring so many wonderful things out of Spain. Letting that filthy flag fly, number 11 is Humanity's Last Breath, Ashen. I mean, if Altarage is filthy, Humanity's Last Breath is the bottom of the sewer in the best way. I'm a huge fan of their work, Bildcharta as well. It's perfect. It's that modern sound that I think is just divine. I mean, the production is so crisp. You can hear every minute detail of the distortion. Everything is perfectly timed. The atmospheric inserts, the tempo changes, the parts that are slower, the huge transitions into the breakdowns. It's just perfect. And they are masters of contrast. So, no bad songs, yet again. My favorites were Catastrophize and Linger, but no bad songs. And just, I'm going to see them for the first time this year in 2024, and I cannot wait. Top 10, Nightmares, Deformity Adrift. Really loved this record. I thought it was a really nice blending of tech and groove, and a little tiny bit of progressive elements. really, really nice quality. I thought some of the djenty parts were really full. Again, more richness. I felt like there was a lot of effort put into this. Every detail was finely fine-tooth combed. Even the imagery of the painting, the album art of these sort of like weird figures that were sort of semi-human but also semi-tree-like was just really fascinating, and all the colors. It almost reminded me a little bit of like Clockwork Orange, but not exactly the same thing. But that sort of those colors and those weird distorted figures. And my favorite song was Suffering Beyond Death. And yeah, it's just really A+ effort, and I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of delve deeper into Nightmare's back catalog. Was excited to see that Alkaloid was back for another record. Newman came out in 2023. I thought it was interesting because the former record, I think it's like Liquid something, that record was phenomenal and really fun to me. Like I felt like I was really on an exciting ride with them on that Liquid Anatomy, something Liquid. I can't recall the name of that album that came out in 2018 now, but like I work out to some of those songs and I feel really pumped up. Newman had a bit of a melancholy quality to me, and that doesn't take away from the mastery. It is still incredibly cerebral, incredibly complex, and technically like superb. But it was just it wasn't as thrilling of a ride, and I think it would have maybe been my album of the year had I had a little more fun with it. But I think that they are geniuses, all of those musicians, and I know some of them came from Obscura and some other bands. Really genius musicians. Just a little bit blue for me. Haken's record was a treat this year as well, and kind of, Alkaloid had this sort of melancholy quality, and I felt that Haken's whole sense of style for the Fauna run, with their outfits and with the album art and with various parts of the music on various songs, feels very celebratory. And it's not that every single song talks about happy things, but it feels like Haken is really celebrating all of their developments as musicians and really just going balls to the walls with this record and with this, again, the floral shirts and everything on the tour. And I know they're going to do a second run of the album on their An Evening With tour coming up here, so I'm really happy for them. Fauna is excellent, number 8 here. I feel like Haken's sound on this record is like a hybridization of Catatonia and Nemic, and I actually think I made a mistake talking about Catatonia. Like I mentioned Beneath the White Rainbow as one of the songs on Sky Void of Stars, but really it's on Haken's album. But I find I've been hearing some similarities. There's a list of Melodeath, and then there's like ICS Vortex like bellowing, there's epic touches, there's prog twists, there's lots of powerful chorus work, great stuff. And even a little bit, I heard a little bit of Between the Buried and Me kind of energy throughout Fauna. My favorite songs, of course, are Taurus, Nightingale, Alphabet of Me, Beneath the White Rainbow in the Correct Spot, and then Island in the Clouds. Island in the Clouds even reminded me of like Sting a little bit in certain parts. So it's just a fascinating album, so rich. Again, another really rich record, so creative, so artistic, and I commend them for a really, really full, gorgeous album. Coming in at number 7, I have almost nothing to say because it's so incredible, is the Zenith passage, Data Elysium. I have like no comments other than it's exquisite technicality. My favorite song is Synaptic Depravation. It's not surprising that it was so good. I've seen it on everyone's lists. It's incredible. No words. Number 6, Cattle Decapitation, Terracide. Another one that's on everyone's list. It's so good. They've been touring it. It's been so cool to see it live. Cattle Decapitation is kind of up there with Catatonia and Haken, really in that sense of they're not doing anything totally off-brand or brand. Well, I guess Haken's experimental, but Catatonia isn't doing things that are super brand new. Cattle Decapitation's not totally reinventing their style, but they've really arrived. I mean, they always sound like they've arrived, and they're just senior, upperclassmen in the industry, in the genre, killing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think experimentation is amazing, but also nailing what you do is also amazing. And Terracide is still so exciting and fresh, even though feels very veterans doing what they do best. Huge bang, groovy, it's techy. The percussion is a dream, and percussion is my favorite element. Well, I like a lot of elements of metal, but I really have a soft spot for percussion, and the drumming is just dexterous and ferocious, and I love that. Scourge of the Offspring, We Eat Our Young, The Storm Upstairs, Dead Ed Residence. Dead Ed Residence, actually, I thought there were some really fun, kind of melodic portions of that were kind of fun and maybe a little bit outside of just the brutal norm, but nothing but deep joy and gratitude for what Cattle Decapitation does, not just in what they produce musically, but the message that they send as they do it. Next on this final countdown is actually an EP. It's not a full-length album, and it's by a Swiss band. Actually, I'm not sure if they're Swiss. I don't know where they're from. Their name is Lunar Chamber. Their album Shambolic Vibrations came out in the spring, I think, of last year. And it was so cool. It was so regal, and it was so mystical. It was like a progressive death metal sound, but with every other type of influence too. There were it was very ambitious. It felt like there were dreamy parts that sounded a little bit like Fallujah. There were certainly mystical and kind of world music qualities to it. And it was just unlike anything I'd heard in a while. It was doomy as well. Just really cool and unexpected, and quality was top notch. My favorite song is The Bodhi Tree, and I feel like I need to do some homework on this band because it was a stunning EP. I feel like I need the fire department for this album. Iconoclast by Herod. The big dogs came to fight. The big dogs came to eat. I struggled to gather myself after hearing this album for the first time. It's another one that's I think everyone has sort of been like, damn, Iconoclast by Herod. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It's majestic. It's huge. It's like Pelagic Records meets Meshuggah with a little hardcore. There's every single song is better than the next. I have a list of just a couple that I have in my notes. I could literally pick every single one as my favorite. I love Girl with the Balloon, the Ode to, the Obsolete. It's just kind of like the Zenith passage. I don't really have much more to say. It's just so good. It's just so good. The finest band in Norway. No one can tell me different. Enslaved Heimdall coming in close here at the very end. It's magnificent. It's just so stunning. Another example of a veteran band that has nailed their thing while also just adapting and becoming somehow more euphoric and more gorgeous and more stunning. Oh my god, I just have stunning next to so many of the songs. My favorite song is Forest Dweller, but I love the surprises that come in the beginning of Behind the Mirror, the clever, so brilliant synth action and touches on Congelia, and the chromatics on Kingdom are gorgeous. I mean, anyone who follows my channel knows how much I love Enslaved. I cover Enslaved a lot. I just find them endlessly fascinating and so professional. And I got to see them last year, shortly after Heimdall came out, and it was very, very fun to see so many of the songs live. So they just keep getting better and better, and I love them so much. Number one. It's the first time I think in a while I've had a number one that's a band that is a new band for me. Omnerod, incredible group from Belgium. Had never really heard of them, but I came across the Commensal Rise last year. Holy smokes! It's kind of that cherry on top of what I've been saying is like a year of richness, a year of intentionality, a year of deep thought, a year of really, really just punishing commitment. I mean, this album will crush to the bone and back, and again, in the most incredible, exciting way. It's a very, very heavy record, a lot of wall of sound, but it's also kind of epic and has that post-metal sort of thing going on as well. It kind of is like a meaner, grittier deconstruction by Devin Townsend-ish, but way, way, way meaner and more intense and stuff. My favorite songs were Satellites, and I thought Satellites reminded me a tiny bit of Praise the Lord, which is from Deconstruction by Dev. Magnets had some really fun gent in the middle of all that evil post-metal wall of sound, and the Commensal Fall is superb and has like the most sort of creepy circus piano middle thing in the middle section that is just like kind of is the stuff of nightmares. And even the album art, like the sort of hot air balloon under like what looks like maybe a lightning strike. It's just a complete package. So thrilling. So just, I don't know, but it was my favorite. I kept coming back to it. It was between a few here at the top with Herod and Enslaved and Omnerod. But I just said Omnerod's it. Omnerod's it. They're my favorite album of the year. A favorite new band I've discovered. And I discovered a lot of new bands last year. But yeah, just cheers to all the incredible musicians who keep putting out their hearts and souls, and they take time away from their families and they tour. Just thank you all, and the community of listeners and the community of people that make covers or support people that make covers, or piano teachers and voice teachers and instrument teachers, like everybody in the musical world and the artistic world. Thanks for a great 2023, and I'm looking so forward to seeing what 2024 has in store.